Welcome to the Insight Through Experience podcast. Podcast created to provide information about what life is like inside the most specialized special tactics organization in the U.S. Air Force. In these episodes, we'll be bringing you the experiences from many of our experts, ranging from our human performance optimization staff, our combat mission supporters, as well as our special warfare operators. Our main objective with these podcasts are to provide the listener with a unique look inside our culture of excellence. Now, sit back, relax, take some notes, prepare to hear from some of the Air Force's finest. Thank you for joining us on the Insight Through Experience podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Insight Through Experience podcast, everybody. This week was a fun one. This episode is a fun one. I went out to the PJ school graduation a couple of weeks ago. We usually brief there every class just to kind of, that's our second touch point with them in the pipeline actually, where we're just highlighting the options that exist for them in a few years where they can come up and try out for the organization. I usually carry a couple of PJs out there with me to help brief because honestly, they have the info that the graduates want. It ain't really this guy. But no PJs could travel this time because everybody's so busy here. So I asked for volunteers, and TEK, who is just an outstanding PJ here, he's a team leader at our operational unit here, volunteered. He said, hey, I'll be during my jump week that week, but I'll take some time out. And he jumped in his car, we hooked up virtually, and I piped his video feed in to the class, and I got to ask him questions, and he was answering them from his car, and it was just fabulous. And the graduates there were really sucked in and bought in by TEK's answers, by the way that he connected with them. So it was a cool brief, and I appreciate TEK taking the time to do this. So I recorded it. I said, why not just turn this into a podcast? Now, don't get me wrong. We were talking to the graduates for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I've cut this down to about 30 minutes. So obviously cut out a lot of stuff, but I tried to keep in stuff that still adds value to the audience and you still get something out of it without adding all the things that we probably shouldn't be talking about over open source. So that's what we did. So that's what this week's going to be. It's going to start out with me kind of introducing the way we were going to do the brief to the graduates, and then we get right into the brief. So if it sounds a little quirky at times, again, just remember we're delivering this to an audience of PJ graduates, not really for a podcast. So I hope you enjoy it. It was fun. Thanks again to TEK for joining us. And hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for joining the Insight Through Experience podcast one more time.
Awesome. So all I'm going to do is facilitate asking some questions and really just to bring out the information out of TEK. But what this isn't just me and TEK talking, right? These questions are really to incite, hopefully, more questions for you. So while you have one of our PJs on the line who has been sitting right here in these seats earlier in his career, he went out to another unit, exactly what you're about to do, and then he made the decision finally to come up to the organization. I want you to put yourself in the open mindset right now of, hey, this might be the last time I get to talk to a 724, the guy who runs selection or the guy who has been through it and is a highly successful PJ at the unit. Let me ask the questions today, whether that's about family, whether that's about timelines, whether about, hey, what's the experience like as a PJ up at the unit right now, okay? So please, anytime you have a question, just shout it out and we'll go. All right, TEK, so let's talk about it. Put yourself back in these guys' seats. What units did you go to after the pipeline, and give us a feel for what life was like there as a PJ when you got there?
Yeah, so I went straight from the pipeline to the 38th down in Georgia, and then from there on to the 320th in Okie. And it was awesome. Georgia was one of the best places I've been. Going as a young guy, we had a lot of studs there, a lot of guys that are up here now. So a lot of training, a lot of guys to look up to. Basically working hard to learn how things work outside of the schoolhouse, and then working on upgrading so you get a little more independence. And then kind of how I mentioned, finding the guys that stand out, that seem successful, and trying to attach yourself to them and pick up what they're doing different than other guys, and trying to emulate some of that yourself. Moving on to Okie, it's a little different. Being overseas, it's a great time, great experience. I would encourage it. It was good, a lot of water work. Again, chasing upgrades, trying to get deployments when they come up. But in today's, I was kind of the era in between the war on terror and where we are now. So chasing deployments when they came up, but also trying to stay busy and stay sharp when deployments weren't happening. And then just to back up just a little bit, I wanted to add, definitely congratulations. What you guys have accomplished is awesome. But that's the first step, man. It goes up from here. There's a lot of awesome stuff happening out at all the units. But I would argue ours is doing some pretty cool stuff too. Don't be shy. I know you guys have been students for a long time, but that's about to be over. If you guys have questions, man, just fire them off. There's no dumb questions, and there's no ridicule here. So
Thinking back, if you could give them one piece of advice as they leave the schoolhouse, kind of talking to yourself back then, what piece of advice would you give them as they start integrating with their new unit?
yeah, so that's a tough one to answer with just one piece, but we'll slim it down. Number one is always stay humble. There's always someone better than you, but that's a good thing. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. So stay humble, but stay hungry. No matter what, keep training. Doesn't matter what kind of team you're on. Find work. A big one that it took me a little too long to learn, but don't shy away from failure. Don't hide from being the lead guy running a rope system or being the lead medic. Put yourself out there, because that's where, when you make mistakes like that, that's where you're going to learn, and that's where you're going to grow, and that's how you're going to go past your peers that you're sitting next to now. And then I think the last thing I was told, and I fully believe it, is never base your career off of one deployment or one duty station or one command team. You got a long career ahead of you, and there's going to be ups and downs throughout it. Look at the big picture, and keep your head down and keep moving. Stay hungry for sure.
I think you said some of these maybe already, Tech, but I'll ask it anyway. Describe one or two of the traits of operators you saw when you got to your first unit that kind of highlighted them as successful and guys you want to emulate.
Yeah, so the big one is going to be guys that are like intrinsically driven, that they don't need somebody telling them to find work, or that they need to work on certain skills. You have to look at yourself, know what you're good at, what you're not great at, and make time to get better at those skills. Especially if you find yourself up here, there's not a lot of time for yourself. So you're gonna have to make time, and I think that's a good habit to start early. Guys that are adaptable, like I mentioned, don't base your career off of one deployment, trip, command team, what have you. You're gonna have to change how you do things in different settings. And the guys that stay adaptable and are able to thrive in whatever environment they're placed in, those are the guys that find their way up here.
I was just reading a paper that I wrote a while back trying to describe recruiting and some of the challenges we have as an organization. I was writing it for the boss. And it kind of blew me away of where my mind was back then, because I think it's right on. And I just want to share this with you real quick. When you get to your unit, right, like you haven't had too much autonomy over the last few years. You've kind of been told where to go, what to do, how to do it. You're going to get to your first unit, and it's going to be a little tight on you at first, right, as it should be. And then it's going to start loosening. Like that constriction that you felt is going to start loosening. There are two type of guys. Once that starts loosening, two type of guys, and what happens, right? The culture of that place, and it's different at every single unit, is going to start becoming part of your background. You're not even going to know that it's starting to seep in and be part of you. And then some guys are going to like the less restriction, and they're going to go ahead and relax a little bit, and then comfort just starts seeping into your lives. You don't know what's happening. It's kind of like growing and you're marking your height on a wall, right? You don't know it until you mark the next year and like, holy cow, I couldn't see myself grow, but I'm an inch taller than I was last year. That comfort starts seeping in, and a lot of guys let it seep in, and that becomes their new norm. Be the guy that is never comfortable. Be the guy that goes in every freaking day and ask yourself, man, am I a little too comfortable today? And seek out something new, something to go fail at, so you can keep getting better at it, kind of what Tech was saying. It's hard to understand that until you go through it. And a lot of guys that don't come up to our organization is because they're comfortable, and they're too scared to leave and go fail again. You guys would not be in these seats, like Tech said. You wouldn't be in these seats if y'all failed a lot, right? You're in these seats because you don't fail a lot. but failure is the only path to growth. So you have to keep making yourself uncomfortable, or you will be that comfortable dude that nobody can depend on. What's the tipping point, dude? So when you were at the 320th, what was the tipping point for you to decide 724 may be a good option?
Yeah, so actually I had kind of mapped out my career plan at the 38th, and we had looked at getting some ST time as experience to come up here. Um, but when I was at the 38th, I think we had a stud group there, and I would say probably 85% of the guys that I worked with at the 38th are now here. And then going on to Oki and watching some of those guys assess and come up here, I was like, man, I messed up. I am kind of wasting away my time. And then seeing all my friends that I thought I was at least as good as assessing, getting picked up, and then being very successful here. It really lit the fire, kind of pushed me over the edge to look into it seriously and throw my name in the hat.
We've talked about it a little bit already, but in your own words, why should these guys come up to assessment sooner than later?
Big answer is like, why not, man? You're never going to be sharper at your skills than you are right now. You're very likely never going to be as motivated as you are right now. This is if there's a place where a hard mission or a high stakes mission are going to happen, it's going to be here. And this is, again, it's not to put down any of the other units. The other units are doing awesome things as well, but this is where the big missions are going to happen, and you're going to be faced with that situation that Mr. Free was just talking about here probably sooner than you realize, where you're either going to just kind of melt away into the daily existence, or you're going to be looking to thrive, and you're going to want to go somewhere and do something, and this is the place to do it. So while you're fresh, while you're sharp, while you're motivated, I'd say come on up and give it a shot.
Let's talk about OTC Tech, and it has even evolved since you came through. But I think a lot of guys too, they don't want to come up and have to go through another assessment, right? They might fail at that, and then 9 more months of training during OTC. There's a lot of failure possibilities in that as well. Describe your time in OTC Tech and how was it?
And so I'll hit on selection real quick since you mentioned it.
Perfect.
I agree. A lot of guys don't want to put themselves out there and go through the suffering that is selection. Man, selection was one of the best times of my life. It is super hard. It's very difficult, but you make some friends that will be with you the rest of your life. And it's an awesome time to find out what you're made of. But then moving on to OTC, I would argue that it is not like a PJU. I was going to almost say that it is. It's a lot of learning, a lot of new stuff about kind of the same skills that you think you have a pretty good grasp of. But it's not like PJU. Guys aren't walking around you staring at whether your carabiner is screwed shut or not, or how you inserted a catheter into a vein. Like, it's about learning. The guys here, the debt, like Mr. Free said, has evolved, and those guys genuinely want the best for you and want you to be the best that you can, because at the end of the day, you're here to take care of our friends. It's long, it's hard days. It is a lot of information, but it's basic information. They like the way we are the best at what we do is because we are really, really good at doing the basic things. We don't need you to be able to do a 15-to-1. We need you to do a 2-to-1 super fast and know that that's the right decision. It's awesome to be surrounded by the best in the career fields, respectively. All of those traits that I mentioned are all of the guys here. So it is an awesome group of guys to work with. And similar to selection, it's a ton of fun if you can get over the fact that it's a learning course. But like I said, the guys are here for you, and they spend those long days with you to make you better at the end of the day, to take care of us collectively. Yeah, it's a great time.
How are you a different PJ on the other end of it?
I think one of the big things I had mentioned earlier, and that might have been where I learned it, was learning to not shy away from failure. I had that idea, but I think going through and then failing at stuff. And so until you realize it's not PJU, you think, crap, man, like I'm going to get kicked out, I'm going to get recycled, whatever. But it's not like that. And that's where I really learned failure is where your growth comes from. And that's what makes you better. And, and it's almost like a drug. As you, as you pick up on that, you'll want to put yourself out there more and more and more. It'll build your confidence. It opens you up to feedback, which we're huge on here. Um, which all of those things collectively make you an extremely more capable PJ, and then also just as a human, I would say it's carried into my home life. Like it's it's a it's a big experience, and I think it does wonders for you as a PJ and as a human being.
I'm going to go about 1,000 different places right now, but let's talk about the failure piece real quick. What I've noticed over my time there, this is my 25th year at the unit, and a lot of that time has been spent either in selection. I used to be an OTC cadre. I used to run OTC. Guys who haven't failed a lot. So selection, I have revamped it over the last few years because I want to give you the taste up front of what a lot of failure feels like, how to get a lot of feedback, and then how to move forward with that feedback and those failures and improve. Because really, it's kind of a mini OTC. It's really sticking the fire hose in your mouth during selection and seeing what happens. And we think if you can do it during selection, it at least gives you a leg up that you're probably the right guy to put into OTC to give one of those sacred seats to, right? But what happens is CQB starts, and a lot of us aren't really up on CQB, and it's new in the environment. There's people in the rafters, and we go in and make a mistake, and the first horn goes off, and they call your name off, and they say what infraction you did, and man, that sucks because all your peers are there, all the cadre are in the rafters are there. What is that failure? What do you think that makes us do? Does that make us more open or less or constricted a little bit? Constricted, right? So what's the tendency from that point forward? Are you going to really push the limit up to the edge of the training so you're getting the most, or what is our human nature going to do? Pull back, man. I just want to kind of be that Homer Simpson backing up into the bushes, right? And just hopefully I'll make it through here without too many more horns. And maybe if I just make it through, I get better at CQB. I'll just be the best CQB guy maybe later on. And that's what TEK said. And what the process is meant to figure out is just to instill some failures. If you can do that before you come up and that's become part of your lifestyle, how can you win? You come up and just thrive at our place. The guys that don't make it are the guys who struggle with those failures early on and they can't push through. So I just wanted any thoughts on that, TEK, before I move on?
No, man, I completely agree. Like I said, failing is where your growth comes from. And then you realize that not only the instructors that are there for OTC, but your teammates are not, it's not like a dog eat dog world. We're a team and we're here to pick each other up. And when somebody gives you feedback, it might take a minute to figure it out, but guys giving feedback are for everyone's benefit. I guess to sum it up, just don't shy away from those opportunities or experiences where you're unsure of whether you have the whole answer right now.
All right, so let's move over to the 2-4. So what was your experience like, TEK, as you transitioned? First off, let me just ask you this. What was it like being a new guy over there when you came off OTCs?
It's a little intimidating at first, knowing that there's just a whole squadron of studs walking around. But it's also pretty exciting at the same time. It's a place you dedicate a significant portion of your life to, and then you finally make it. And then you get faced with that same scenario that y'all are going to be at soon. Where do you want to push yourself and try and be one of the top guys that other dudes look up to, or are you going to be good enough with where you're at? So it's just like y'all are about to be new guys at your units, figuring out the difference between the way you used to do things versus the way you learned them in OTC to the way things are in the real world. And then it changes whether you're with the Army or the Navy. So a lot of learning, a lot of questions, trying to be as efficient as possible with your time at work. And then, like Mr. Free alluded to, taking care of your family. And then that into your work life, finding out who carries what kind of gear, What do Army medics carry? What do Navy medics carry? When do I need more extrication stuff? And then kind of the realization of like it really is just you making big time decisions in a deployed setting with significant consequences. And at first that can be a little intimidating, but man, once you kind of take it on, it's exciting. It is a rush, and it is worth it for sure.
Tech, what do y'all expect out of a guy who just comes off OTC? So PJ just gets off OTC, very well trained. He integrates into your team now. What's his expectations for about the first year?
Humility, like I said earlier, come in humble. Awesome. You guys are graduating PJU. These guys graduate OTC. So did all of us. So come in humble, come in hungry, ask a lot of questions. I would say the mark of a good older guy is that he's there for your questions and answers them with humility, as it takes humility for you to ask the question, looking for opportunities to work and get better. If you again have weaknesses or flaws, identify them, let people know, and then if you can't set it up yourself, we'll set something up and we'll make things better. I'd say that's another beauty of being here. We have a lot of autonomy and a lot of pull in a lot of areas. So if we identify some issues or things we're lacking in, we have all of the assets in the world to improve ourselves.
So Tech, when you started going up to the Army or Navy or both, explain the difference. What's the difference of being a PJ, maybe assigned to the Army than the Navy? What do they expect out of you as a PJ?
So at the Army, they have some super shit hot assault medics, and they kind of are the med authority when you're working with them. But you are, especially amongst the medics, you're treated the same, on target. If there's a casualty, treat whoever you find, whatever makes sense. But you're leaned on a little heavier for the TRS extrication role, whereas at the Navy, you are the med authority. You will run the show there, which is a little more responsibility than at the Army, because you have the same responsibility with the TRS extrication, collapse structure, all that stuff, but you're also running the actual med scenario, running the med plans, coming up with load plans if you have multiple casualties. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but heavier on med with the Navy from their eyes, and heavier on CSAR extrication stuff at the Army.
If you could sum up, what's the best thing to you? If you had a recruiting pitch right now of what life is like up there and why you enjoy it so much, what would that sound like?
Man, if you want to hang out with your best friends all day and do like the coolest shit on the planet, this is where it happens for sure. The guys that we work with are some of the most awesome dudes, whether we're talking at their jobs or just as human beings. The guys from PJ's controllers, SR guys, our support shop, all of them, like these are some of the best in the world at their jobs and just cool people to hang out with. And like both Mr. Free and I mentioned, like the training is insane. It's hard a lot of the times, but it is some of the coolest shit you will do in your life.
All right, Tech, so let's talk through it, man. Were you married when you came up?
I was.
So how was that? How did you talk the wife into it? Was she accepting right away?
Not at all. You were spot
So walk us
spot
through it.
on when you said that it is not. We are not the ones that need convincing to come up here. It's definitely the women. Yeah, no, I had told her I wanted to come up here. She wasn't about it. She didn't want me gone all the time. She didn't really want me doing dangerous stuff. But after a while, I was able to convince her, and I think it was one of the best decisions we've made, both for me and my career and us as a family. The time away from home is taxing, but the amount of resources that we have here, it will blow your mind. It's hard, I imagine, for you guys having nothing really to compare it to outside of the pipeline right now, but like the unit cares about you as a person and they care about your family. And this is absolutely not me blowing smoke. It is, I believe it to my core. Not only do the people care, but we are willing to spend a shitload of money to pay people to work here, to take care of all the things that we have to put aside sometimes to go take care of business. Again, I've said it about a bunch of things, but it is mind blowing how much people care and how far people are willing to go to take care of your family.
What's one thing you know about the unit now that you didn't know when you came up there that should make everybody want to make this a spot on their future career path?
This place, like I know it sounds like I'm just pumping us up and making us sound great. That's because it fucking is. This place is cool shit. Like Mr. Free said in the very beginning, like I'm out instructing skydiving all week. The best dudes at pretty much anything you can think of, whether it has to do with work or not. There are some of the best in the world that are for some reason here in North Carolina, and you get to work with them. How to the rest of the world, the war is kind of dying down and we're drawn out of a lot of places. That's a big facade. We are out there. We are absolutely still doing very important things, relatively dangerous things, but it's a blast.
Can you just, from your experience, just talk about the HPO staff, Human Performance Optimization Staff? Y'all are probably aware of that acronym. Can you just, from your experience, because I know, I mean, you're so integrated and you do things with even Evan, our strength coach. So can you just talk about it?
Yeah, Evan's the man. Evan's my troops lead strength coach. He has become one of my best friends out here. There's 3 strength coaches. I think we have 3 or 4 physical therapists. We've got some other athletic trainers. We've got a sports doc that is not for like sick call stuff. He's just there to take care of us injury wise. We've got 2 or 3 psychologists. We've got social workers. We have an entire basic med staff here for anything sick call, who recently has made it to where we don't have dental here on the compound, but they've worked it out to where dental comes to us. The resources are there, seemingly endless. Again, the unit really cares about you as a human being. You're not a tool here. They care about you while you're here. They care about what happens to you after you're gone from here, and they absolutely care about your family while you're out taking care of the rest of the country.
Okay, so the other thing I've been thinking about lately with the culture thing is once you get into your unit, right, that culture takes over. And so when you go do a training event, you're only going to push as far as that culture is used to, right? So failure usually doesn't happen a lot of these units because of that. What we see guys, especially take PJs, for example, when they come up to OTC, you have to keep pushing your personal limit and realize that, man, just because I'm good enough here doesn't mean I'm good enough. Because guys get to our OTC and they can't tie the basic freaking knots anymore. How did that happen in a culture of where they came from? You know what I mean? Like, you should be the most, when you have downtime, if you're facing in the medical book or tying freaking knots or thinking about extrication, what are you even doing in the military, right? And that's a little bit of what we're seeing. It seems like guys took their foot off. But man, if you come up there knowing your basic skills to where they can then build on top, you win. Like, you win.
We expect guys when they come up here to be pretty good at the basics, but that's what we run on. We run on basics. We're not doing crazy wazoo shit most of the time, but we'll teach people how to be a little more efficient, make decisions a little faster, and then even just the thought process of breaking down whatever your problem is to its simplest state and then solving it as simply as possible.
All right, Tech, what last words you got before you sign off?
2 things I think I wish I could have told my young PJ self. 1, never apologize for taking care of your family. That comes first, always. And if you have a supervisor or command staff that doesn't see that, then you need to highlight it, because your family is absolutely your support system. When your 20 years is done, we say bye to each other. Your family's still at home, so put them first. And then another one that I think is a common mistake is the culture of being a real PJ, not one of the fake guys that talk about it. It's not being at the bar getting fucked up and showing up to work and being the best partier, man. The dudes that I see here that are way better than I am, they prioritize their families and then they prioritize work. They put in the time, be shit hot at work, and earn respect that way. Don't earn it at the bar after work. I know that's a little bit of a Debbie Downer statement, and I apologize. But I think that's a big misconception. That's not part of the culture. That's a made up thing.
Dude, Tech, I appreciate you being here, man. Get it back out of the car and do some jumping. But thanks for showing up, dude.
Yeah, of course. Hey, congrats, dudes. Y'all have fun on whatever day y'all actually graduate. If that's today, then awesome. But yeah, thanks for listening to me. Yeah, yeah, go get it, boys.